License and registration. Marcus Hall kept his hands on the steering wheel. 10 and 2. Visible, unthreatening. Of course, officer. His voice was steady, professional. May I reach for my glove compartment? The officer leaned closer to the window, his breath fogging the glass. His nameplate read, Donnelly. You always ask permission to follow basic instructions? I do, when someone has a gun pointed at my general direction. Marcus moved slowly, telegraphing every motion. His fingers found the registration, then his wallet. He handed both through the window. Donnelly snatched them, his eyes narrowing as he studied the license. Marcus Hall, this your real name? It is. Funny, you don't look like a Marcus. The officer's lip curled. Where are you coming from this morning, Marcus? A meeting downtown. What kind of meeting? Donnelly's tone sharpened. What do you do for work? Marcus felt the familiar tightness in his chest. The same tightness he'd felt at 16 when Officer Patterson pulled him over 3 blocks from his mother's house. The same tightness at 22 when Detective Morrison stopped him outside his college graduation. The same tightness that never quite went away, no matter how many years passed or how many titles he earned. I work for the city, Marcus said. The city. Donnelly laughed, a short, ugly sound. Doing what? Collecting trash. I'm in administration. Administration. Donnelly examined the car's interior, his flashlight beam cutting through the morning shadows even though the sun was already up. Nice suit for a trash collector. Nice car too. This yours? Yes. Registered in your name. It is. You're holding the registration. Donnelly's jaw tightened. Watch your tone, boy. The word hung in the air between them. Boy. Marcus had heard it before. He would hear it again. The insult was designed to strip away decades of education, years of service, everything he'd built, reduce him to nothing more than the color of his skin. I'm 43 years old, Marcus said quietly. I haven't been a boy in a very long time. You'll be whatever I say you are. Donnelly stepped back from the window, his hand resting on his service weapon. Step out of the vehicle. Am I under arrest? You're about to be if you don't step out of the vehicle. Marcus unbuckled his seatbelt. Slowly, his movements deliberate, careful. He opened the door and stepped onto the asphalt, his polished shoes reflecting the morning light. He stood at 6'2", his frame lean but solid beneath his tailored navy suit. Donnelly circled him like a predator sizing up prey. Put your hands on the hood. Marcus complied, spreading his palms flat against the warm metal. The black sedan gleamed beneath his fingers. He'd bought it last year after his promotion. A small victory. A reminder that he'd made it out of the neighborhood where squad cars meant trouble, not safety. You mind telling me why you pulled me over? Marcus kept his voice level. Broken tail light. My tail lights are fine. Are you arguing with me? Donnelly moved closer, invading Marcus's space. His cologne was cheap and overwhelming. Because if you're arguing with me, we're going to have a much longer conversation downtown. Marcus said nothing. He'd learned that lesson early. Sometimes silence was the only weapon you had. Donnelly patted him down roughly, his hands aggressive and intrusive. What's a guy like you doing with a car like this? You sell something you shouldn't be selling. I told you. I work for the city. Right. Administration. Donnelly's laugh was mocking. Let me guess. Affirmative action hire? Marcus closed his eyes briefly, breathed in, breathed out. His therapist's voice echoed in his head. You can't control other people's ignorance. You can only control your response. I earned my position, Marcus said. Sure you did. Donnelly straightened, walking back toward the driver's side. He peered into the open door, scanning the interior. You got anything illegal in here? Drugs? Weapons? Stolen property? No. You mind if I search the vehicle? I do mind, actually. You don't have probable cause. Donnelly's expression darkened. He stalked back around the car, getting in Marcus's face. You some kind of lawyer? No. Then shut up about probable cause. You know what I think? Donnelly's breath was hot and sour. I think you stole this car. I think those clothes are stolen too. I think you're running some kind of scam, pretending to be something you're not. Marcus turned his head slightly, meeting the officer's eyes. You're making a mistake. Is that a threat? It's advice. Marcus kept his tone neutral, but something in his voice must have changed because Donnelly's hand moved back to his weapon. Advice? Donnelly snorted. You're in no position to give me advice, boy. You're the one with his hands on the hood of a car that probably isn't his, wearing a suit that probably isn't his, driving through a neighborhood where he probably doesn't belong. I grew up 2 miles from here, Marcus said softly. Sure you did. And I'm the Pope. Donnelly stepped back, reaching for his radio. Dispatch, I need backup at Oak and 7th. Suspicious individual, possible stolen vehicle. The radio crackled. Copy that. Unit 23 responding. Marcus kept his hands on the hood. He knew the script. He'd lived it a dozen times before. The difference was that those other times, he'd been powerless. A teenager with nothing but his mother's prayers. A college student with dreams but no authority. A young professional trying to prove himself in a system designed to doubt him. Things were different now, but Donnelly didn't know that yet. A second patrol car pulled up 3 minutes later. The door opened and Officer James Chen stepped out. Marcus recognized him immediately. They'd met twice before in departmental briefings. Chen's eyes widened when he saw who was spread-eagled against the sedan. Deputy, Chief, Chen started. You know this guy? Donnelly interrupted, his voice sharp with suspicion. Chen's mouth opened, then closed. Marcus caught his eye and gave the smallest shake of his head. Not yet. Let this play out. Chen hesitated. What's the situation? Broken taillight, Donnelly said. But now I'm thinking stolen vehicle, false identification, maybe more. He's been giving me attitude since I pulled him over. Chen walked slowly toward the car, examining the taillights. They look fine to me. Well, they weren't fine when I pulled him over. Donnelly's voice rose defensively. Are you questioning my judgment? No, Then shut up and help me search this vehicle. Marcus spoke quietly. Officer Donnelly, I'm going to give you one more chance to reconsider what you're doing here. Donnelly whirled on him. One more chance? You're giving me chances? He grabbed Marcus's shoulder, spinning him around. You arrogant son of a… Donnelly! Chen's voice cracked like a whip. Stop. But Donnelly was beyond hearing. The rage had taken over, the kind of rage that came from years of unchecked power and the sudden, terrifying possibility that maybe, just maybe, he'd misjudged the situation. You think you're better than me? You think your fancy suit and your clean car make you special? I've dealt with hundreds of guys like you. Thugs in expensive clothes, criminals playing dress-up. Marcus turned slowly, facing him fully. I'm going to reach into my jacket pocket now. Very slowly. Don't shoot me. Don't move. Donnelly's hand was on his gun now, actually on it. Donnelly, let him move, Chen said urgently. Just let him. I said don't move. Spittle flew from Donnelly's mouth. His face had gone red, veins standing out on his forehead. Marcus moved anyway. Slowly, deliberately, he reached into his inner jacket pocket and withdrew a black leather badge holder. He set it carefully on the hood of the car, then stepped back, hands raised. The morning went silent. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. Donnelly stared at the badge holder like it might be a snake. Open it, Marcus said softly. Donnelly's hand shook as he reached for it. He flipped it open. The gold shield caught the sunlight, gleaming. The words were embossed in black. Internal Affairs Division, Deputy Chief Marcus Hall. The badge holder slipped from Donnelly's fingers, clattering on the hood. His face drained of color. He looked at Marcus, then at the badge, then back at Marcus. Oh God, he whispered. Chen closed his eyes, his expression pained. I tried to tell you. Marcus picked up his badge, returning it to his pocket. He smoothed his jacket, adjusting his tie. When he spoke, his voice was calm, professional, the voice of a man who'd sat across from dozens of officers just like Donnelly, reviewing complaints, watching body camera footage, deciding careers. Officer Donnelly, I want you to know something. This isn't the first time I've been pulled over for no reason. It isn't the second time. It isn't the 10th time. Marcus kept his eyes locked on Donnelly's face, watching the realization spread like poison. When I was 16, an officer named Patterson pulled me over and searched my mother's car. Found nothing. Didn't apologize. When I was 22, Detective Morrison stopped me outside my graduation and asked me if I'd stolen my cap and gown. At 28, Officer Rodriguez followed me for 6 blocks before pulling me over, claiming I matched the description of a robbery suspect. The suspect was 5 inches shorter and 50 pounds heavier than me. Donnelly's mouth worked soundlessly. Do you know what all those officers had in common? Marcus adjusted his cuffs. They assumed. They saw skin color and made a decision about who I was, what I deserved, how I should be treated. They used their authority not to protect and serve, but to intimidate and control. Deputy Chief, I didn't know. You didn't know I was your superior. Marcus cut him off, his voice hardening. But what if I wasn't? What if I was just Marcus Hall, high school teacher? Or Marcus Hall, insurance salesman? Or Marcus Hall, electrician? Would that have made this acceptable? Donnelly's silence was answer enough. Here's what's going to happen now, Marcus continued. You're going to return to your patrol car. You're going to retrieve your body camera footage from this morning. You're going to drive back to the station, and you're going to deliver that footage directly to my office. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Donnelly's voice was barely audible. Officer Chen, you're going to write a complete report of everything you witnessed here. Every word. Every action. I want it on my desk by end of shift. Chen nodded, his expression grim. Yes, Deputy Chief. Marcus walked to his car door, then paused. Officer Donnelly, one more thing. Donnelly looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. Maybe a reprieve. Maybe mercy. You asked me earlier what kind of work I do for the city. Marcus opened his car door. I investigate officers who abuse their authority. I review complaints of misconduct. I recommend disciplinary action up to and including termination. That's my job. That's what I do every single day. The hope died in Donnelly's eyes. Keep the camera rolling, Marcus said. This is exactly the kind of thing Internal Affairs needs to see. He slid into his car, started the engine. Through the open window, he could see Donnelly standing frozen on the shoulder, his face ashen. Chen had moved to his partner's side, speaking in low, urgent tones. Marcus pulled back onto Oak Street, his hands steady on the wheel. In his rearview mirror, he watched the 2 officers grow smaller. Donnelly was still standing there, staring after him, a man confronting the ruins of his own arrogance. The meeting downtown had been about reform. 3 hours of discussion about implicit bias training, community outreach programs, accountability measures. The mayor had been there, along with the police chief and a dozen community leaders. They'd talked about building trust, about changing the culture from within. Marcus had listened, taken notes, offered suggestions, but he'd also wondered, as he always wondered, whether words and policies could ever truly change hearts. Whether training modules and sensitivity seminars could reach the Donnellys of the world, the officers who saw badges as licenses for prejudice. Now driving through morning traffic, his phone began to buzz. Text messages popping up one after another. Word traveled fast in the department. Chen must have made a call. Captain Rogers. Marcus, I heard what happened. You okay? Lieutenant Kim. Jesus Christ, Donnelly's an idiot. Let me know if you need anything. Sergeant Mitchell. Just saw the report. Holy hell. Marcus didn't respond. Not yet. He needed to think. His office was on the 4th floor of City Hall, a converted conference room with windows overlooking the park. Plaques lined one wall, commendations from his 20 years of service. Photographs showed him in uniform, shaking hands with community leaders, receiving awards. His desk was organized, files stacked neatly, everything in its place. He sat in his chair and opened his laptop. The cursor blinked on a blank document. Incident report. He'd written hundreds of them, but this one was different. This one was personal. Subject: traffic stop incident. Officer T. Donnelly, badge, ER 40472, date. Current date. Time, ER 647 hours. Location, Oak Street and 7th Avenue. His fingers hovered over the keys. He thought about his mother, the way she'd gripped his hand when he was 16 and Officer Patterson had ordered them both out of the car. The way her voice had shaken when she said, "Yes, sir," and "No, sir," and "Whatever you say, sir." The way she'd cried later, in the safety of their kitchen, because her son had just learned that the color of his skin was a crime in some people's eyes. He thought about his daughter, Zoe, who was 17 now and learning to drive. She'd asked him last week why he looked so worried every time she took the car. He hadn't answered. How do you tell your child that the world might see her as a threat simply for existing? Marcus began to type. Officer Donnelly initiated a traffic stop, citing a broken tail light. Visual inspection by both myself and Officer Chen confirmed no broken tail light existed. When questioned about the reason for the stop, Officer Donnelly became hostile and evasive. Throughout the interaction, Officer Donnelly employed racially charged language, including referring to me as boy, and making unfounded accusations regarding the legitimacy of my vehicle ownership. He suggested I was involved in criminal activity, specifically drug sales, based solely on my appearance and the quality of my vehicle and clothing. Officer Donnelly demanded I exit the vehicle without articulating reasonable suspicion or probable cause. He conducted an aggressive pat-down and attempted to search my vehicle without consent or legal justification. When I referenced my constitutional rights, he interpreted this as combative behavior and threatened arrest. Officer Donnelly called for backup and continued to escalate the situation despite my calm compliance. When Officer Chen arrived, Officer Donnelly prevented him from intervening or examining the supposed broken tail light. It was only upon presentation of my internal affairs credentials that Officer Donnelly's demeanor changed. His apology focused not on his behavior, but on his failure to recognize my position, suggesting he would have continued his actions if I had been a civilian. Marcus stopped typing. His hands were shaking. He pressed his palms flat against the desk, breathing slowly until the trembling stopped. The door opened. Captain Sandra Rogers entered without knocking, her expression a mixture of anger and concern. She'd been his mentor when he'd first joined Internal Affairs, a 30-year veteran who'd seen the department at its worst and its best. "I heard," she said simply. "Word travels fast. Chen's a good kid. He knew he needed to report it immediately." Rogers sat across from Marcus, her chair scraping against the floor. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." "Marcus," he looked up, meeting her eyes. "I'm fine, Sandra." "No, you're not, and that's okay." She leaned forward, her voice softening. "You don't have to be fine. What Donnelly did is exactly what dozens of officers do every day." Marcus's voice was flat. "The only difference is I had the power to do something about it. That's not nothing, isn't it?" Marcus gestured at his computer screen. "I write up Donnelly. He gets suspended, maybe fired. Then what? Another Donnelly gets hired in another department. Another black man gets pulled over for driving while black. Another mother has to explain to her son that being good and smart and successful isn't always enough." Rogers was quiet for a moment. "You sound tired." "I am tired." Marcus rubbed his eyes. "I'm tired of being the exception that proves the rule. I'm tired of people being shocked when they find out what I do, like I'm not supposed to be here. I'm tired of wondering if every traffic stop is going to be the one where the officer doesn't recognize my badge in time. Then why are you still doing this?" It was a fair question. Marcus had been offered other positions, lateral moves that would take him out of Internal Affairs and into less contentious territory. Community liaison, training coordinator, administrative roles where he could coast until retirement. Because someone has to, he said finally. Someone has to sit across from officers like Donnelly and tell them they're wrong. Someone has to review the footage and write the reports and make the hard calls. If I don't do it, who will? Rogers nodded slowly. You're right. But that doesn't mean it's not costing you something. The truth of her words settled heavy in the room. It was costing him. Every incident report, every disciplinary hearing, every confrontation with officers who saw him as a traitor to the thin blue line. It cost him sleep and peace, and the easy comfort of not knowing how bad things could get. But the alternative was worse. The alternative was being silent, complicit, another person in a position of power who looked the other way because confronting the problem was too hard, too uncomfortable, too dangerous. Donnelly's footage should be here within the hour, Marcus said, pulling the conversation back to business. I'll review it this afternoon. Chen's report too. What are you going to recommend? Suspension without pay, pending a full investigation. Mandatory retraining. Formal reprimand in his file. Marcus paused. If the investigation supports what I experienced, and I believe it will, I'll recommend termination. Rogers didn't flinch. She'd been doing this long enough to know that some officers couldn't be saved. Some had crossed too many lines, internalized too much hate, abused too much power. They didn't need retraining. They needed to be removed before they hurt someone. The union will fight it, she warned. Let them. Marcus's voice was steel. I've got body camera footage, a witness report from Chen, and my own testimony. They can fight all they want. Donnelly's done. After Rogers left, Marcus returned to his report. He documented everything methodically, professionally. The timestamps, the exact wording of Donnelly's accusations, the escalation pattern, the failure to provide justification for the stop. By the time he finished, 3 hours had passed. His coffee had gone cold. His phone showed 14 missed calls and 37 text messages. He ignored them all. A knock on the door. Marcus looked up to find Officer Chen standing in the doorway, a folder in his hands. My report, sir. Chen entered hesitantly, placing the folder on Marcus's desk. I included everything. Every word I heard, every action I saw. Marcus opened the folder, scanning the contents. Chen's handwriting was neat, his account detailed and damning. He documented Donnelly's hostility, his racial language, his baseless accusations. He'd also included his own failures, his inability to stop the situation, his delayed intervention, his fear of contradicting a fellow officer. This is good work, Chen. Marcus closed the folder. Honest work. I should have stopped him sooner. Chen's jaw was tight. I knew what he was doing was wrong, but I didn't want to contradict him in front of you. In front of a civilian, you mean? Chen flushed. Yes, sir. I thought you were a civilian. I didn't know who you were. And if I had been? Just some guy in a suit, would that have made Donnelly's behavior acceptable? No, sir. Then why did you hesitate? Chen struggled with the answer. Marcus watched him, remembering his own early years in uniform, the pressure to support your partner, right or wrong, the unspoken code that said you never questioned another officer's judgment in public, the fear of being labeled a snitch, a traitor, someone who couldn't be trusted. I was scared, Chen admitted finally. Scared of making things worse. Scared of Donnelly turning on me. Scared of being the guy who didn't have his partner's back. And now I'm more scared of being the guy who stood by and watched someone get abused because I was too much of a coward to speak up. Chen met Marcus's eyes. I'm sorry, Deputy Chief. I should have done better. Marcus stood walking around the desk. You did something important today, Chen. You told the truth. You documented what you saw, even though it implicated a fellow officer. That takes courage. It doesn't feel like courage. It never does. Courage feels like fear that keeps moving forward anyway. Marcus extended his hand. Thank you for the report. Chen shook his hand, relief evident on his face. What happens now? Now I finish my investigation. I review the footage, compile the evidence, make my recommendation to the chief. Then the disciplinary board makes a decision. Will he be fired? That's not my call. But between you and me? Marcus lowered his voice. Yes, I think he will be. And he should be. Officers like Donnelly are a liability to the department and a danger to the community. After Chen left, Marcus retrieved the body camera footage from the evidence system. He plugged in his headphones, opened the video file, and pressed play. The footage was damning. Every moment he'd experienced was captured in high definition. Donnelly's sneer, his contemptuous tone, the way his hand kept drifting to his weapon, the racial slurs carefully coded in acceptable language, the escalation despite Marcus's perfect compliance. Marcus watched it twice, taking notes. Then he sent copies to the chief's office, the disciplinary board, and the district attorney. He also flagged it for use in the implicit bias training Rogers had been developing. His phone rang. The chief. Marcus, I just saw the footage. Chief Thompson's voice was tight with controlled anger. I don't even know what to say. Say you'll support my recommendation for termination. You know I will. This is exactly the kind of behavior we've been trying to root out. Thompson paused. How are you holding up? I'm fine. Marcus? I'm handling it, Chief. I've written my report, documented everything, followed protocol. Donnelly will face consequences. The system is working. The system almost failed you completely. If you'd been anyone else. But I'm not anyone else. I'm internal affairs. I have power that most people don't have. Marcus stared at the frozen image on his screen. Donnelly's face twisted in contempt. That's both the privilege and the burden of this position. Thompson was quiet for a long moment. I'm convening the disciplinary board tomorrow morning. Emergency session. I want this dealt with immediately. Agreed. And Marcus? I'm sorry. I'm sorry this happened. I'm sorry you had to experience it. And I'm sorry that we have officers like Donnelly in our ranks. After the call ended, Marcus sat in the silence of his office. Outside, the city moved through its day. Cars honked. People walked to lunch meetings. Life continued, oblivious to the small drama that had played out on Oak and 7th. His phone buzzed. Zoe. Hey, Dad. Can we talk when you get home? Marcus typed back. Of course. Everything okay? Yeah. Just had a weird interaction with a cop at school today. Career day thing. Want to get your thoughts. Marcus's stomach tightened. What happened? He asked what you did. I said you were Deputy Chief of Internal Affairs. He got really quiet and kind of walked away. It was awkward. We'll talk tonight. Love you. Love you too. Marcus set down his phone. He thought about Zoe, bright and ambitious and on the edge of adulthood. He thought about the world she was inheriting, the one where some officers saw his badge and walked away, while others saw his skin and reached for their weapons. The disciplinary board met the next morning in a windowless conference room. 5 members, Chief Thompson, Captain Rogers, 2 lieutenants Marcus didn't know well, and a civilian oversight representative. They reviewed the evidence in silence. The body camera footage played on the screen, Donnelly's voice filling the room. Boy, thugs in expensive clothes. You think your fancy suit makes you special. When it ended, the civilian representative, a woman named Patricia Henderson, who'd fought for police oversight for 2 decades, spoke first. I've watched a lot of body camera footage in my time on this board, she said quietly. This is among the worst I've seen. Not because of violence, but because of the casual cruelty. The assumption of criminality based solely on race. The complete lack of justification for any of his actions. Lieutenant Garcia nodded. The broken taillight claim is clearly false. Deputy Chief Hall's vehicle had no damage. Officer Chen confirmed this. Donnelly's entire justification for the stop was pretextual at best, fabricated at worst. At worst, Rogers's voice was sharp. There's no at worst here. It was fabricated. Period. Donnelly saw a black man in a nice car and decided that was sufficient reason to harass him. We need to be careful about assigning motive. Lieutenant Barnes cautioned. We can only judge based on what? The evidence? The evidence is crystal clear. Rogers leaned forward, her expression intense. We have a respected member of this department, a man with 2 decades of service and an impeccable record, who was subjected to racial profiling and harassment by one of our officers. There's no ambiguity here. Chief Thompson raised his hand, quieting the discussion. Let's focus on the facts. Officer Donnelly initiated a traffic stop. Without valid cause. He used racially charged language. He escalated the situation despite Deputy Chief Hall's compliance. He threatened arrest without legal justification. He attempted to search a vehicle without consent or probable cause. These are clear violations of department policy and constitutional law. His disciplinary record? Henderson asked. Rogers pulled up Donnelly's file on the screen. 3 previous complaints. 1 for excessive force, dismissed due to insufficient evidence. 1 for racial profiling, sustained but resulted only in a written warning. 1 for failure to file proper reports, also sustained, also just a warning. Pattern of behavior, Garcia said. Clear pattern, Rogers agreed. This isn't an aberration. This is who Donnelly is as an officer. The vote was unanimous. Termination, effective immediately. The board also recommended that the district attorney review the incident for possible criminal charges, though everyone in the room knew that was unlikely to result in prosecution. Marcus received the notification that afternoon. Donnelly was done, his badge surrendered, his access to department systems revoked, his 20-year career ended by his own arrogance. There was no satisfaction in it. Marcus had hoped there would be some sense of justice served, of scales balanced. Instead, he felt only exhaustion. Donnelly was gone, but the system that had protected him for years remained. The culture that had allowed 3 previous complaints to result in mere warnings remained. The assumptions that had led Donnelly to see a black man in a suit as a threat remained. Marcus went home early. The apartment was quiet. Zoe wouldn't be back from school for another hour. He sat on the couch, loosening his tie, and allowed himself to feel it. The anger, the frustration, the bone-deep weariness of fighting the same battles over and over. His phone buzzed. An unknown number. He almost ignored it, then answered. Deputy Chief Hall? The voice was unfamiliar. Male, older. My name is Robert Mitchell. I'm calling because, well, I heard about what happened with Officer Donnelly. How did you hear about that? My son works for the department. Officer Mitchell. He's friends with Chen. Mitchell paused. Deputy Chief, I wanted to thank you. Marcus frowned. Thank me for what? For not letting it go. For using your position to hold that officer accountable. Mitchell's voice grew thick. 20 years ago, I was pulled over by an officer who did almost exactly what Donnelly did to you. Same accusations, same assumptions, same hostility. But I wasn't Deputy Chief of Internal Affairs. I was just a truck driver trying to get home. And when I tried to file a complaint, I was told there wasn't enough evidence. The officer's word against mine. Nothing happened to him. Marcus closed his eyes. I've carried that for 2 decades, Mitchell continued. The humiliation, the anger, the feeling of powerlessness. But today, when my son told me what you did, how you documented everything and held Donnelly accountable, he stopped, voice breaking. Thank you. Thank you for showing that the system can work. That justice is possible, even if it came too late for me. They talked for 20 minutes. Mitchell shared his story, the details eerily similar to Marcus's experience. A pretextual stop. Baseless accusations. The assumption of criminality. The officer's smirk when Mitchell tried to assert his rights. When the call ended, Marcus sat in silence. He thought about all the Robert Mitchells out there. The men and women who'd been profiled, harassed, humiliated, and had no recourse. No badge to flash. No power to wield, no justice to claim. That was why he did this job. Not for himself, but for them. For every person who couldn't fight back. For every mother who taught her children to say yes, sir, and no, sir, and hope it was enough. For every teenager pulled over for the crime of existing while black. Zoe came home an hour later, dropping her backpack by the door. Hey, Dad. Hey, sweetheart. Marcus patted the couch cushion beside him. Come sit. Tell me about this cop at career day. Zoe settled in, tucking her legs under her. It wasn't a big deal. Just weird. He was talking about community policing and building trust, and someone asked if he knew any officers who'd gotten in trouble for doing bad things. He said most officers are good people who make difficult decisions under pressure. That's often true. But then I raised my hand and said that wasn't always the case. That there are officers who abuse their power and face no consequences. He asked how I knew that, and I said my dad investigates police misconduct for a living. Zoe shrugged. He literally just walked away. Wouldn't answer any more questions. Marcus pulled his daughter close. That officer was wrong. You weren't wrong. And you should never be afraid to speak the truth even when it makes people uncomfortable. Even when it's about cops. Especially when it's about cops. We hold immense power in society. With that power comes responsibility. When we abuse it, someone has to speak up. Marcus kissed the top of her head. I'm proud of you for asking the hard questions. That night, after Zoe had gone to bed, Marcus returned to his laptop. He opened a new document, different from his official report. This one was personal. A letter he would never send but needed to write. To every officer who ever pulled me over for no reason, you saw skin color and made assumptions. You saw success and questioned its legitimacy. You saw a man in a suit and saw a criminal in costume. You used your badge to intimidate rather than protect. You weaponized your authority against someone who'd done nothing wrong. You thought you had power. And you did. But power isn't absolute. Power isn't permanent. And power wielded unjustly eventually finds its reckoning. I didn't fight back when I was 16 because I was scared. I didn't fight back at 22 because I didn't know how. But I learned. I studied. I worked my way up through a system that didn't always want me there. And now I sit in a position where I can do something about people like you. This isn't revenge. Revenge would be personal. This is justice. Justice for everyone who couldn't fight back. Justice for every person you profiled and harassed and humiliated. Justice for the community you swore to serve but chose to terrorize instead. You asked me what I do for the city. I investigate officers like you. I document your misconduct. I recommend your removal. That's my job. And I'm very good at it. You called me boy and thought you were diminishing me. But I was never small. I was never less than. I was always exactly who I said I was. A man who earned his place, who deserved respect, who refused to accept your narrative about what I could be. The question isn't what I'll do. I've already done it. I've documented your behavior. I've compiled the evidence. I've made my recommendation. The question is what you'll do now. Will you recognize your prejudice and work to change? Will you use this moment to become better? Or will you leave this profession bitter and unchanged, blaming everyone but yourself for your downfall? I hope you choose growth. I hope this moment of shame becomes a catalyst for transformation. But honestly, I'm not optimistic. People like you rarely change. You'll tell yourself you were treated unfairly, that I had it out for you. That political correctness ruined your career. You'll never admit the truth, that you destroyed your own career the moment you decided my skin color was probable cause. Power isn't about control. It's about restraint. It's about choosing not to use your authority to hurt people. It's about recognizing that the badge doesn't make you better than anyone else. It makes you responsible to everyone else. You failed that test. You chose control over restraint. You chose cruelty over compassion. You chose your prejudice over your duty. And now you're done. I hope every officer who watches your body camera footage learns from your mistakes. I hope they see themselves in you and choose differently. I hope they remember that every person they stop is someone's father, someone's son, someone's hope for a better future. I hope they remember that power without restraint is just tyranny in a uniform. But mostly, I hope they remember me, standing there with my hands on the hood, speaking with calm dignity while you hurled accusations and insults. I hope they remember how the situation ended, how the arrogant officer was humbled, how the man you tried to diminish walked away with his head high. I hope they remember that justice, though delayed, eventually arrives. Deputy Chief Marcus Hall. Marcus saved the document and closed his laptop. Tomorrow he would return to work. There would be other cases, other officers, other instances of abuse and misconduct. The work would never truly be done. But tonight, he allowed himself to believe that one small corner of the system had been improved, that one officer who'd caused harm had been removed, that one person, Robert Mitchell, felt a measure of justice after 20 years. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough, but it was something. And in a world where so many black men faced harassment and hostility without recourse, something was better than nothing. Marcus Hall, Deputy Chief of Internal Affairs, closed his eyes and allowed himself to rest. Tomorrow he would continue the fight, but tonight he could breathe. Outside his window, the city lights flickered. Patrol cars moved through the streets. Officers responded to calls, some with compassion and professionalism, others with prejudice and cruelty. The work would continue. The fight would continue. And Marcus Hall would be there, holding the line, demanding accountability, refusing to let power go unchecked, because someone had to. And it might as well be him.